Hey everyone, this is my second go at giving you my opinion and thoughts on stuff on the Town Hall meeting that was on the 26th of June, so not too long ago. This one covered quite a few topics, and it was interesting. I thought there was some good information. I also thought there were some pretty crappy questions that were asked, but basically Russ was being interviewed by the two top guys from No Guts No Galaxy Television. It was kind of funny to listen to it and how it was being handled. Basically, Russ sounded like he was either really, really tired, really, really bored, or a mixture of both. But either way, he didn't sound up for this at all. But the first thing he was asked was to do with Community Warfare Phase 3 by a user called Lego Pirate. And he gave a 35-minute rambling answer to this, and I'm just going to try and give you the footnotes of it. Basically, they're aiming to release this by October of this year. He originally didn't envisage it as being a sort of Phase 3 in so much as like a big kind of expansion to the mode. He envisaged it being like new features being added every month, like during the patches, but it kind of became a much larger thing. And the main point is there's big contract changes coming up. The point is being that there's going to be more distinction now between what a loyalist faction does and what a mercenary faction does. So, as a loyalist, you will have the ability to... Firstly, you'll be the only units that can accrue loyalty points. That whole system's being reworked. And as a unit that's loyal to a specific faction, let's say you're loyal to Davian, you will every day get to vote on what planet Davian attacks next. And obviously the most votes mean you get to pick the attack corridor that you're going for, rather than it being the current sort of algorithm that's currently sort of picking neighbouring worlds and stuff, and sometimes creates odd little situations where like entire planets get ignored. Now you'll actually be able to decide who you want to go for specifically as a foe, and what kind of path you want to carve through your opponents, which is kind of cool. It's something that really should have been there from day one, Community Warfare, especially after all the talk that they were giving a couple of years back about how it was all going to work. It's nice to finally see that functionality coming in. But he also mentioned that you're not, once you make a sort of loyalty pledge to a specific faction, you aren't locked into that faction permanently. You can actually break a loyalty contract, but basically you will earn a tag above your name for X number of days that will say deserter, and then when you pick another faction that you want to be loyal to, so if you switch from Davian to Kurita, you're then on a probation period where you have to play so many matches for Kurita, and then your loyalty contract kicks in and you start getting loyalty points for that faction then. Which is, yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, at least it means you've still got the flexibility if your unit changes internally enough that you decide that you want to take a new direction, then you can. One of the other things is you'll finally be able to do something with your coffers as a loyal unit. You'll be able to incentivize for the mercenary factions. So if you vote on a planet and you go, well, we really need this planet to be conquered for whatever reason. I assume Phase 4 is going to incentivize like stuff you get from the different worlds, but the main thing is, like, so you've decided you want to attack this world, and you want to make sure that all the mercenaries that are currently on contract with Davian or Kurita or whoever, you want to make sure they attack that as well. You can go to your unit coffers, and apparently you'll be able to add, like, say 50 million C-bills as like a pool of extra cash, that every time mercenary units attack the world and they're successful, they get some of that 50 million as a reward. So you can like massively incentivize the planets as a unit that you want them to attack, because you might also be attacking the same world and you can quickly take over. So there's at least something you can do with your C-bills now for all those donations you've been taking in. Other things, although this sort of counts apparently for both, you'll finally be able to do things like improve defenses on worlds, which also obviously uses your coffers. So we don't know, he didn't go into details about that. He basically just said that you'll be able to upgrade defenses. So Presumably, maybe turrets will get a redesign on Community Warfare, and they'll be like, maybe you can change them from, I don't know, like medium lasers to like large lasers, and then ER large lasers, or I don't know, PPC turrets or something stupid, or maybe you can have ballistic turrets or something. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they do with that. Mercs, on the other hand, will change a little bit. They now gain notoriety instead of loyalty, and notoriety apparently will have a different set of rewards compared to loyalty points, and with that, apparently you gain them at a much slower rate, but you also I don't know, I guess it kind of works the same way as far as I could tell. It's just they had slightly different rewards. I'm imagining that you get like different cockpit items, and they might even create a few new items just for the mercenaries, so it'd be interesting to see that. Solo players will now also be involved in the call to arms screen when a planet urgently needs those numbers to make up an attack or defense. Lone wolf or solo players will get the little pop-ups now in the bottom right of the screen, so they can choose to jump in if they want or not. I mean, it'll curious. I can see it creating a situation where you're going to get a lot of people who last minute are going to get this pop-up, and they're going to go, oh, okay, that's interesting, and they click it, and they jump into a screen, and they've got a drop deck that's full of champion mechs, and they're going to have to try and edit their drop deck in time before a drop starts. But and you know, if you're completely new to that, you're going to be asking for like, oh, how do I do this, or what's a drop deck, and I can't save it, and like, oh, well, there's a ton. I think there's going to be a bit of frustration there, to be honest, but maybe the tutorial that's coming will set that up for you as well. Apparently, there will be a new user interface coming, but there was no details on that. As I said, he sounded pretty bored. There's going to be a leaderboard system introduced. So the top units can, you know, see how each of them are doing in the grand scheme of things. Kind of cool, I suppose. I could see some of the really big units getting quite competitive there. So, I mean, that might actually encourage a bit more community warfare to happen, I guess. What else we got? Oh yeah, 4v4. They've expanded this a lot more than what they were originally talking about, which is a good thing. The main one being that it will act as a kind of preamble to an invasion match, with the idea that basically a defended world, and I don't know whether this has anything to do with the upgrades that you can buy or not, but basically he was saying that these 4-on-4 matches will have like conquest capture points, and the objective of the attacking group is to take these while also killing their opponents, and the other team have to stop them from capping it. And if you're successful in defending them, you will have these abilities that you can use on the map. I don't know who gets these, I assume it's company commander. And they go in 3 levels, he said. One of the first level will be things like an intel scan or something, which will, when you hold tab, you'll be able to see what all the first mechs that they're all dropping in are, so you'll be able to have an idea of the unit composition. And the second phase of it would be like a radar sweep, so you can all see where they are. It all sounds a bit Battlefield, I guess, which isn't a bad thing to copy in certain aspects. And the top tier one is a bit like, basically is an artillery call. And he was saying long tom, but considering the artillery modules are already long tom barrages, I assume hopefully they would do something like an arrow 4 strike, possibly, or something a bit more, I don't know, either a bit more deadly or a bit more visually impressive. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, basically the point is the scouts can attack, and if they capture these, they reduce the levels of these abilities. So obviously if you take the first one, they don't have the artillery strike anymore, and blah blah blah. Nice idea. Apparently you can do the scout drops as far as I know, multiple times. Possibly only the scout drops for the first couple of hours of the attack window, and then you can do invasion matches. So that might change how that works. Russ was envisaging that this would create a whole new level of gameplay. I'm not sold on this 4v4 mode. Again, I think it'll be a good thing for the truly competitive types out there. I don't see this as being a mass player base kind of event or mass player base kind of mode to play, especially when it comes to Innisphere v Clan. I imagine that's going to be very difficult to do, especially when you look at the advantages the clans have in a very small engagement. Things like being able to bring multiple Streak 4 and 6 launchers, and having better range, and generally their lights aren't as fast, but then I don't know whether this is going to be on a tonnage limit. He didn't say whether there would be like a class limit, as in you can only bring lights and mediums, but even if it was just lights and mediums, I could see a lot of adders and kit foxes being streak boats with beagle probes. That's all I'm saying. Was there anything else? Scout missions, yeah, they only happen on the contested worlds, but that makes sense. Why would you scout a world that's not under attack? I don't know why he made that distinction. I guess some people just honestly need help understanding this. There was a couple of weird caveats during this. He basically said that there aren't really a lot of players for Community Warfare. He said the matchmaker for it is kind of broken. I mean, people say the matchmaker for the public queue is broken. This, going by what he said, it's kind of balked for Community Warfare. One of his lines was something like, even if there were double the players that currently play Community Warfare, it still wouldn't work properly. Take from that what you will. Whether that's a cry for help or an indictment of the system, I don't know. But that's what he was saying. But he's confident that this phase 3 will add more people to the pool of available players for Community Warfare. I don't really see it, because Community Warfare has always been marketed and given to us as this. Well, this is for you, the hardcore. This is for the guys who play 12-mans all the time. This is for the folks who really want the hardcore communication style gameplay and the tactics. And this isn't for everyone. This isn't for all the casual players, all the new players and stuff like that. Or just, I don't really see these little changes being the kind of thing that's going to drag in all those solo players. I really don't. But whatever. Whatever makes you happy, Russ. What else have you said? Yeah, more people are needed for that. He would... Oh yeah, that was another thing he mentioned. He said that some units out there are quite big. And in a point is a unit like TCAF. They're a very big unit in MechWarrior Online. And he actually said that these very large units with 300 plus players are a detriment to the system. Because they're... Not in a way of he doesn't like the idea of there being really big groups of players. What he means is, because there are so many singular large units, that means there isn't enough people spread across all the factions to be able to help the matchmaker make a match quicker. And if these units were broken down into much smaller groups, it would actually generate more matches quicker. But the note I had was he would rather see more smaller units instead of big 300 plus player units, but he likes things where they are right now, and there are no plans to force it to be 1-1-1-1 for drops. So if that was something you were scared about, that's not going to happen. Then he went to the next question. It was from JMan5. I'm only mentioning the names in case anyone who's listening to this is said person, and you get your credit for your question. Ammo changes for Community Warfare that make them more viable. Oh yeah, this was a question to ask if there could be some kind of change to allow you to essentially carry more ammunition somehow for long Community Warfare matches. Sorry, but this thing already stretches both. At this point, it's already stretching both MechWarrior and BattleTech logic, and the idea of being able to have an LRM mech that somehow is carrying 11 tons of LRM ammunition, and that somehow there's a quirk or a module that doubles it. No, it's a stupid idea, and unfortunately, Russ just said no. KL17 then asked, when can we expect the new UI for Community Warfare? But Russ had no answers regarding. He mentioned the UI changes were coming, but he had no information, and he would basically have to ask someone in the office. So that was useful. Dawnstealer then asked, will we have destructible gates, tanks instead of turrets, and conquest for Community Warfare? I did actually agree with Russ here, is having the gates be something that you just shot instead of blowing up a generator, which blowing up the generator is kind of irritating as well, and it doesn't make sense that the generator would be right next to the gate. It would either be buried underground or it would be far back at the baseline, because that's what you made cables for, didn't you? But he did point out that if the gates were something you had to shoot, not only would it create this situation at the beginning of a match where everyone's just stood there shooting endlessly, wearing down the hit points on a gate, but he also said that most people would just bring energy weapons and they would just shoot it, or there'd be people who'd be firing their ballistic rounds at the gate and running out of ammunition before the fight actually starts. So fair enough. Yeah, he did say on the point of turrets that it's not impossible for there to be tanks in the future. This kind of plays into the fact that there's PvE content on the way, but there's no date for it, obviously, as a lot of things with PGI. But he does like the idea of turrets being replaced with tanks, and that it could happen further down the line. And he likes the idea and would fully be behind the idea of having ghost drops. If you don't know ghost droppers, on Community Warfare you could get a 12-man team to attack a planet or defend a planet. Although, no, sorry, it only works for attack, sorry. And you get a match, but you don't get a defending team. And the countdown runs, and then you just drop, and you just run over and blow up the objective, and hooray, you win. So he likes the idea of, in the future, having a completely AI team that you would fight. Whether that would be mechs and vehicles, I don't know. You will probably hear a cat in the background. It's early in the morning over here when I'm recording this, so she's... if you watch my XCOM video, that is the XCOM cat. There was a player called Kai Kai who asked, Community Warfare matches counting towards your stats and achievements. Again, Russ was pretty brief on this one. No idea. He thinks it would be a technical issue that would be quite time intensive, and a feeling that the community wouldn't like it compared to the other features. I don't see why the achievements can't work for Community Warfare. Are they that separate a system? Really? I wouldn't have thought they were, but I mean, I'm not a technical engineer by any standards. It seems a bit of a shame. I don't know if that was like a cheap answer there. It was just an easy one. Rogue Jedi asked, clan second line or 2C variants? Initially this pissed me off because his answer was, we've got 2 new hero mechs coming in early July. And he's just completely ignores this guy's question. There was no fucking information. I was really pissed with this. The 2 he went on about was there's going to be a new Thunderbolt hero called the Tall Man, which is based on a cannon variant of the Thunderbolt. Basically, loads of energy. I think he said something like 9 hard points. So it's just going to be another Wub laser boat, basically. The other one was going to be a Griffin that I think had missile and energy ports or something. So a normal Griffin. He didn't give a name for that hero one though, but hooray, another Griffin hero, guys. Sir Edward then asked asymmetric mode. Now this is going back to something Russ mentioned ages ago, which was having a 4th game mode, and this one was, I think it was going to be called Dropship Attack or something like that. Originally, that was the working name. But apparently they've had the Union class in-game for a while, modelled, at least in the office. And it needed a bit more work before it was finished. But Russ does like the idea of having an asymmetrical mode where a defending team has to protect a Union dropship from the attackers. And the attackers obviously have to blow up the Union. Kind of a cool idea. I would be very happy to see that as a new mode. It would certainly freshen things up. It wouldn't be the usual NASCAR running around in a big circle kind of game. and there's at least a modicum of tactics and movement involved in trying to get to the best position to attack the enemy. So that could be interesting. I do like the idea of that. He does ramble about this question for a long time, so I just kind of stopped taking notes after a while once he got to the meat of the question. Next one was Kirku, and he asked whether engine double heatsinks will actually have the same efficiency level as other like standard double heatsinks that you put in your mech, because currently, even though you upgrade your heatsinks to doubles in an engine, they only go to 1.4 heat efficiency, so they're not actually as good as the extra ones you add. I don't know why they did this, but then I don't know why all engines don't come with 10 as standard. Russ didn't understand the question. He just rambled on about how this wouldn't work and blah blah blah, and making heatsinks more efficient, until it took I think it was Phil of NGNG to basically like explain to him like, no, what he means is the engine heatsinks, and he was like, and when he finally got it, he just said, I don't know. So thanks, Russ. That was really good, mate. I do agree with Kirku. I do think if you're gonna upgrade, if the engine heatsinks are being upgraded to doubles, they should actually, I don't know, double your heat dissipation. Is it that difficult, guys? Lego Pirate, any plans to revisit jump jets, since taking more than one doesn't change anything for class 1s? Apparently this is on the cards. For anyone who doesn't know, the other class of jump jets are relatively okay in regards to how much thrust and how quickly they recharge and lift certain mechs, but class 1 jump jets currently don't have any stack bonuses, so if you have a mech that equips them, you just put one on and you get the exact same amount of thrust as you would if you'd put 10. So apparently there's going to be a bit of a across the board kind of revisit to jump jets and how they're going to work and stuff like that. But he did assure us that it wouldn't be a return to things like pop-tarting, so we wouldn't be seeing Highlanders like hovering over a hill and like sniping you. So, alright, fine, whatever. Octocat then asked, any news on weapons or mech packs, or this was quite an all-inclusive one, AI for Community Warfare, new quirks and new modes. Now, obviously new modes have already been mentioned by him, but he talked about, he ignored, again this was another question that he got and just completely ignored every aspect of it, and instead he decided to talk about a complete internal rebalance of every mech. Now, this is new, this is news at least, but I just like the fact that it's almost like he has an itinerary of the meeting for himself, and he just goes, okay, I've hit 7 minutes of talking, I will now talk about X feature. I completely ignored the fucking community question, so I thought that was quite funny. Basically, every mech is going to get an internal rebalance, and there'll be public tests. I think they're going to come sooner than expected. He likens this sort of rebalancing to giving every mech a kind of battle value, but they aren't adding battle value to MechWarrior. He also talks about he mentioned that quirks were going to be refined to make them more about the battlefield role of the mech rather than just being about pew pew. And he rambled again. I mean, I put down he was prone to distracting himself with bullshit. He ignores the question. So no. So he could have just said, no weapons, no mech packs, no AI, blah blah blah. But no, he just sort of talked about something completely different, like he'd been asked a separate question from like an alternate fucking dimension. So then we had Ender Assassin, who brought up the question of any hope of map updates that will remove the visual filters like those seen on River City. And he said yes, and then talked about the new River City map. For anyone who doesn't know what he's talking about, the visual filters is if you drop on Caustic or River City currently, the day version, there'll be like this slightly coloured filter over on the image. So River City has this kind of brownish filter, and Caustic has this sort of greenish yellow one. And I know for some people that is irritating, or it causes performance issues. And basically River City, the redesigned River City, which is going to be bigger and better and louder and have dropships that take you into the match and stuff, will apparently completely do away with this visual filter. Also new, if you watch the Dev Vlog 12, which will be up on the website whenever, if it isn't already by the time this goes up, apparently that'll be showing off new features like deformable terrain within the new map, so you'll be able to do things like shoot out the lights, crush the lampposts, knock down trees. It's only taken 3.5 years for these features, but hooray, we're finally getting them. He also then went on to mention that the next map would be Forest Colony. I think that was the one that won the vote, so that's going to get redesigned completely, and then they're going to go on to Alpine Peaks, and basically expect Alpine to become a smaller map. He referred to it as becoming Alpine Valley. Oh, Alpine Valley. I Go Pirate, again, he asked, will there be Clan Hero mechs? And Russ just said yes, but he's not prepared to talk about it, so I guess that's good. It's kind of hard for them to do Clan Hero mechs. There aren't that many pilots of that sort of timeline period that had anything that sort of approached a unique version of a clan mech. It's obviously the big deal about clan mechs was Omnitech, so you didn't need hero variants because, well, you could just plug and play any kind of weapon setup that the mech could accept, or combination that you could come up with. That was the whole point in a Sphere mechs having unique variants, was because somebody had, either through desperation or having the funds and the resources available, completely redesigned X battle mech for their own personal, style and blah blah. So that's why you had things like the Yenlo Wang and Christ, mine goes blank, like the Shadowhawk and the Loki, the Pirate's Bane, and that. These were all used by very, very rich or influential people who could afford the absolute fortune it costs to modify an Innisphere mech to the level that as players take for granted in MechWarrior Online. But in the context of the universe, modifying a mech is not an easy task. If you look at what MechWarrior, the tabletop thing, was, if you wanted to, say, swap and change an engine, you had to have the engineers who had the skill, you had to have the equipment that you wanted to put in, you had to have the location to do it, i.e. the facilities capable of doing half of this work. You probably needed another group of people who understood how they would redesign all this tech, and you needed the money. And by the end of it, you'd end up paying more for having a medium mech completely redesigned in this way, like adding a new engine and better internal structure and new weapons and all the rest of it, or custom weapon configuration. You could have just bought probably like 2 new mechs for that amount of money. So anyone who thinks that this pilots were always swapping and changing their mechs, no, they weren't. Those were a tiny percentage. It's just MechWarrior as a game series has, since MechWarrior 2, has always been built around the idea of people just coming up with whatever they could fit in the mech, and it's made sense in MechWarrior 2, but Mercenaries and anything to do with the Innisphere, it was a gameplay mechanic that was used for gameplay, but it wasn't actually Battletech or MechWarrior tabletop role-playing, but whatever. I digress. East Indy asked group sizes in public, as in the public queue. This started another one by Russ. Basically, could the matchmaker work using only one 4-man on each side? And Russ said that's what he'd like to see. He would also like to see matchmaker actually using the 1-1-1-1. We all know how that went. Previously, it was not a success, and people did not like it. He said if it did work like that, matchmaker would work like a dream, although Russ is always quite happy to go, if you all did exactly what I wanted, then things would be fucking perfect anyway. He said he would prefer 4-mans, but he knows that the larger groups prefer to play it in much larger groups in public queue. What was interesting was he did kind of bemoan the fact that there are 12-man stomp groups. He doesn't like them. he says he's watched streams where they do like 12-0 rolls, and he says he doesn't see the point in them. He doesn't see them as being fun, but he knows that's what these players want, so that's what these players get. He then also brought out a live stat on the thing, and said that about 7% of the groups in public queue were higher than 4, apparently. So there are 93% of groups are either 4, 3, 2, or they're just solo players, which isn't a group. So yeah, so take from that what you will. I don't know whether that was just him taking a dig, whether he's like had enough of certain people bitching at him all the time. I don't know. Adam Baines then asked if there was a Steam update regarding that, and basically Russ said that no, but he knows it's coming, and he hasn't really moved much beyond that. He said, yeah, that was it. He wanted to have the new tutorial finished before they went onto Steam, so new Steam users had the new like PvE element of the tutorial. It's kind of sad that so much of this work for this tutorial to add things like PvE, i.e. AI combat, is going into the tutorial, and things like voiceovers as well. And I don't know, I just really wish that this was something that they'd worked on prior to the tutorial. I would have loved to have seen PvE earlier. And I know this is a great first step to it, but the tutorial has been a really long time in coming, and people have been I don't know. It just seems to be the PGI way of doing things, where they sort of get around to very basic features like 3 years late, and this is another example of it. He's aiming to have it out by September or October, but he doesn't really want to, make that a hard date. He also says that there's going to be some kind of new system that will replace ELO. That will probably be a good thing. Alistair Winter asked, will we see some skill tree changes? Basically, another slightly rambling answer, and where he got kind of... He got completely fucking sidetracked on this one. Basically, he answered the question straight off, where he said, no, there's nothing new yet for skill tree changes. And then he went on and discussed a totally different subject, and he basically said that the mech lab is still a priority for them as far as revamps go. July 7th patch will add the new expanded mech lab UI for other aspect ratios of your monitor. So if you're having trouble with that, at least that might be fixed. He also said that the next big thing after that is the new mech select screen, which he said is really cool, mainly because the new mech select screen will actually show your mechs in the colours that you've currently got it in, and visually it will show the weapons configuration that you've currently got, which is, it's a nice thing. I remember them mentioning that a couple of years ago as well. But again, at least it's coming. He's tentatively dated that August sometime. Also, decals, as they were joking, are done, but they're waiting on the mech lab changes. Tiger Lily then asked, will we have chassis specific leaderboards? And again, he got completely confused with this and thought it was talking about Community Warfare, and someone had to correct him. And yeah, he liked the idea, but apparently by the looks of it, it was something he hadn't thought of. But the functionality from the Community Warfare leaderboards might allow them to do that. I suppose it'd be nice to see. TV's Brent then asked, will there be more functional chat tabs, movable chat boxes and stuff? Again, this was a question that Russ didn't really understand, whether this was just him being tired or something, I don't know. But basically, the guy was asking, can we have the ability that while we're in the mech lab, we can have a chat tab up from the social window, and we can just move that to one side of the screen while you're still working on your mech and then typing in. Russ seemed to think that this was some kind of in-game chat tab system. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. Once that got fixed, he kind of just shot the idea down and said no. So, hooray. Thanks, Russ. Then there was a discussion about cheating, and basically he said that they've got the next wave of cheats who were ready to be banned, but obviously he wasn't going to reveal the methods of detecting said cheats, but he says they have irrefutable proof of these people's cheating methods, and he's also aware that there are other cheats out there, and he's just waiting to sort of add them to a list, and then they'll ban them in a wave of, I don't know how many they did last time. Was it like 60 or something crazy like that? He is, however, quite happy that there are less cheats than he himself thought there would be in the game, and he sort of likens this to the fact. Well, he attributes this fact to the game being mostly server-side, so there aren't that many client-side hacks that you can use. He also mentioned that some of the players who he knows are cheating are still really shit at the game, so I imagine that these are guys who can see you through the map and stuff, and they still suck. So that's alright, that's kind of fun. I'm not 100% happy with the way that they're dealing with the cheat situation. I also don't like the fact that it's now created a culture where people are now just constantly reporting other people. Like, for instance, in my unit, there's a player who I'm pretty good friends with. I know for a fact he's not cheated. He never would cheat at the game, but he got a lucky headshot, as we all do in games like this. It's a shooter. And this asshole fucking reports him for cheating. And, you know, if my friend gets any kind of action taken against, if he's now added to some kind of list of cheats by PGI, that's really going to piss me off, because it's just creating a situation where that anyone can just report anybody for any perceived slight. You know, oh, that guy blew my arm off at that range. There's no way he could hit me. Oh, he must be a fucking cheat. And then it's so stupid. I really do hope that guy was ignored, because he didn't provide like video evidence or anything. But it's just the fact that that people are allowed to just do this. It's so bullshit. I don't like the way that they're doing it. Ender Assassin then had another thing like physics being used to knock down mechs and trees and other objects. Now we know that trees are already going to be on the list, at least for... I don't know if this deformable terrain thing will go across every map, or whether this is just for the new map, River City. I think it's just River City, to be honest. They mentioned Devlog 12. There won't be weather effects in the maps. So don't expect there to be like dynamic sort of shifting like rain or like a thunderstorm or anything like that. Wrecked vehicles are a possibility, but it's not something Russ seemed to want to do. He said that they'd have to make new props of the then deformed vehicle state. He said that it's doable though. He says there's no new mech collision system, but apparently they're going to add in some new visual and sound effects. So if you bump into a building or another mech, you'll see sparks fly off, and there'll be like this scraping metal sound. So I guess it's another immersion factor. I guess it's all right. I know later on he did mention. Oh yeah, that was it. River City. The new River City will apparently have some kind of dynamic shifting time of day, where you'll be able to see, like, there'll be like a dawn, a dusk, and a couple other states, and you'll sort of, as the match progresses, you'll see this kind of change. I guess having like a dusk going into very early evening, so it gets a little darker and the lights come on the city. That's kind of cool. It's again something that I kind of wish they'd done earlier. Bad Arcade Kitty, I think it was, asked would there be any new flavor animations. Or these are things like, you know, when you see your pilot pressing buttons and stuff, like, so when you use a UAV, you'll see like you could see your pilot's hand like press a button and the UAV launches, or pressing a couple of buttons and the artillery strike drops and whatever. But no, apparently that's not on the cards. This also then causes Russ to go into distraction mode, and he just out of the fucking blue announces that they have completely redone host state rewind. This is a biggie. Basically, one of their engineers, who by the sounds of it would probably be burnt the fuck out, has completely optimized the host state system, and he discovered bugs within it, which he fixed, and now host state rewind takes into account the positioning and bones of the mech you're firing at. This is not currently the case, and the reason for this is not known. But basically, if you've ever had a situation where you fired a PPC and you know on your screen you hit that mech, but it registered no damage, it's because, as far as host state rewind is concerned, that player had turned his torso and you missed, or it hit the arm, or something like that. Now, this new one that takes into account the bones of the mech will actually rewind the state of the mech where it was positioned when you fired compared, and apparently this will be really, really good for players with much higher ping. What else did he mention? That's been optimized as well. He hopes to have this in by July 7th, so I'm not sure if that's the... I think that's the next patch. It was kind of weird. It's kind of like he was bemoaning the idea of regional servers after he mentioned this, but he said that we're still going to get the European and Oceanic servers. He sort of details these a little later on. But yeah, he was saying like, oh, we don't need with how good this new system is, we wouldn't need the European or the Oceanic servers. Blah, 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 bullshit. I just think he was just bitching for no good reason, and I love the fact that he's so confident about this new host state rewind system prior to it actually going into a live environment, which is just classic Russ. It's like every time he says, oh, we're doing changes to Matchmaker, which will definitely make it work, goes into a live environment, it either crashes, breaks, or doesn't fucking work at all. So I'd rather wait and see whether host state rewind actually makes it better. Plus, it's also kind of insulting to bitch that players in locations like South Africa and Australia and Japan and those kind of locations should just lump the 300 to 400 ping they're suffering. Because host state rewind with the new bone system will make it like you're playing it with a ping of 90. Now, ping is ping. If it's high, it doesn't matter how good your fucking magic host state rewind system is. You still get lag, dickhead. I'm sorry, Russ, but it's so stupid. I mean, there are European players who have a rough time trying to play MechWarrior Online, and their pings are only going up to like the high 100s to 200s. I know what it's like for me, because I used to have the ping on my games sometimes shoot up to like 200, and it become fucking unplayable for me. So even if every time I fired, we definitely hit, it's not a fun experience because I'm lagging. Like, my inputs are lagging, so like if I'm trying to turn, I'm not turning fast enough. So no, we need these regional servers. We've always needed the regional servers, and I'm glad that they're finally getting around to adding them. The Euro server will be at the end of July, but there's no hard date for the Oceanic one. He also detailed the aspects of how this section will work. If you're on the European or the Oceanic server, when you click play now, there will be a drop-down box, and you'll be able to check North American, EU, and OC servers. There's the cat again, by the way. When you check whatever boxes you want to go on for, whatever servers you want to search for a match in, you click play, and it searches, it finds players, you go. All fun. However, North American players will not have the option of playing on the EU or Oceanic servers. They are hard locked into the North American servers, which is obviously good. The servers are located in Montreal, I think, and that's fine, because many North American players will just prefer to use the closest server, their regional server. So I don't really have a problem with this, although I suppose it does create a situation where I guess North American players may find there being less players at certain times of day, because naturally the European players are going to play at their peak times on the Euro server, and without the ability to be able to play with the Europeans, the North American players might find there actually being less people, whereas myself and other players in Australia and the like, in South Africa, will have the open option of going worldwide with their search. So actually, this is kind of an upside for us. I could see this changing, to be honest. Did he see? Oh yeah, Community Warfare, however, will not have EU or OC servers, so this is just for public queue, which isn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things, to be honest. Then Russ perks up. He becomes a happy chappy. He suddenly becomes less tired and more invigorated as he announces the new mech pack. I've noticed this is a trend with town halls. Every single one seems to have the little $80 to $120 price tag of a new mech pack. And this one is a biggie. This one will introduce second line or 2C variants. If you don't know what a second line clan mech is, basically it's a mech that is an original design, but it lacks Omni-mech technology, so it works much in the same way as a normal inner sphere mech, but it's got the advantages of Clan XL engine, Clan ER large, blah blah blah, but Clan Tech up the wazoo. The 2C variants are basically, let's see, the Jenna. Like the clans took the Jenna and they went, let's make this better, or let's make this clan. So they slightly rework it and they put Clan Tech on it, and that's what this pack is. It's going to be called the Origins pack. It's going to feature the Jenna 2C, the Hunchback 2C, the Orion 2C, and the Highlander 2C. Some of these are quite different, by the way. Visually, they will look quite distinct, and their weapon setup will be quite different. For instance, the Orion ditches the AC-10 for, I believe it's a Gauss rifle. It has 2 large lasers and an LRM-20 with an SRM-4, so it's quite a switch from what the original Orion was carrying. And the Hunchback 2C is probably the most visually unique in the fact that it carries 2 Ultra AC-20s, one in each side torso. To be honest, it's a gorgeous mech, I have to admit. As much as I'm not a fan of the clans, I do really like the look of the Hunchback 2C. And it's a fucking brutal mech. There are images available that you can see now. If you just go to Russ's Twitter, you can see the new mechs from an art perspective. They also plug the new Instagram channel for MechWarrior Online. I've been to it. It's okay, I guess. It needs more time to fill out. Teacup then asked if there's going to be Innisphere Omnimex. No idea. Basically, Russ likes the current setup with Innisphere v Clan, and he'd like to add more of the second line Clan mechs before we get near Innisphere Omnitech. There was a question about fixing geometry and other issues. When they say geometry, they don't mean map geometry, they mean mech geometry. Basically, there's going to be a list of 5 mechs voted on, and they're going to be the priority. The mech lab overhaul will also include 4 of the remaining 5 mechs to have their refit, so you'll actually be able to see the weapons change on the mech. The last one will be the Stalker, and those 4 mechs will be fixed on July 5th. I don't know off the top of my head what those 4 mechs are, by the way, sorry. The question about Unseen being added to the game, Russ said that he hasn't done anything yet. He was considering at some point soon contacting Harmony Gold again. He then made reference to the trailer, I think it was like 2009 or 2011, can't remember, the one that had the Warhammer in. He said that he was pretty confident that if they had gone to court over that situation, they probably would have won, because their Warhammer didn't look exactly the same as the Harmony Gold Macross Warhammer. Basically, he's saying there's no plans for the Unseen yet, but they're not off the table. And I believe the last thing that was mentioned, yes it was Solaris being added. This was a situation that people have wanted a Solaris arena mode for, since the start of MechWarrior. Basically, Solaris is like a big kind of gladiatorial arena type world where in the periphery where mech pilots go to make a name for themselves in these like massive, almost death matches, but it's not explicit. And there's all kinds of it's like massive junk filled arenas with all kinds of like pitfalls and death traps, and it was basically like a big arena sport that people would watch. And Solaris has been in a couple of the previous games, and Solaris would allow you to do things like, I guess, having 12-man free-for-all deathmatch, or being able to do, I don't know, a bunch of different game types, I guess, if they really wanted to go to town on it. But they said it would be like adding the equivalent of a new Community Warfare, which, as we know for PGI, adding Community Warfare took them a long fucking time. So adding Solaris could be a way off yet. So yeah, that wraps up the town hall that he did. It was very very long. I mean, I've managed to get this down to 50 minutes. He took 2 hours to answer most of those questions the way he did. So the main things to take from it is get your wallets ready for another mech pack if you really like it. I'll be buying it. Yeah, there was the Community Warfare Phase 3 stuff, the announcement of the big sort of map rework and the fact that there'll be a video showing off and things. The regional servers, probably the host state rewind is the biggest current mechanical feature that will be interesting to see how that works. And yeah, a few bits and pieces here and there, but yeah, those were the main topics. So I think I've gone on long enough myself, so thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good week, and yeah, thanks for subscribing and taking the time to comment and everything else. Really good to do these videos for you folks. So, Critical Rocket signing out.